researchers coined the term emotional intelligence, EQ, to describe the ability to understand and manage one's own emotions and to be sensitive to others' feelings. Studies show that EQ is positively linked with self-esteem, life satisfaction, and self-acceptance, as well as with healthy conflict management in relationships. What are emotions? We have physiological factors. For example, the physical components of fear could include an increased heart rate, a rise in blood pressure, an increase in adrenaline secretions, an elevated blood sugar level, slowing of digestion, and the dilation of pupils. Marriage researcher John Gottman notes that these symptoms also occur when couples are in intense conflicts. He calls the condition flooding and has found that it impedes effective problem solving. Feelings are often apparent by observable changes. Some of these changes involve a person's appearance, blushing, sweating, and so on. Other changes involve behavior, a distinctive facial expression, posture, gestures, different vocal tone and rate, and so on. Although we usually think nonverbal behavior as the reaction to an emotional state, there may be times when the reverse is true, when nonverbal behavior actually causes an emotional state. Verbal and nonverbal expressions of emotion are often interconnected. Social scientists refer to the process of reappraisal, rethinking the meaning of emotionally charged events in ways that alter their emotional impact. Research shows that reappraisal is vastly superior to suppressing your feelings, and it often leads to lower stress, higher self-esteem, and an increased productivity. One study found that couples who regularly step back from their conflicts and reappraise them from a neutral perspective have higher levels of relational satisfaction. It's important to note that reappraisal is not denying your feelings. Verbal expression. In fact, nonverbal actions are better at conveying emotions than they are at conveying ideas. But sometimes words are necessary to express feelings. Saying "I'm really angry" is clearer and probably more helpful than stomping out of the room. And "I'm feeling nervous" might help explain a pained expression on your face. Most scholars acknowledge that anger, joy, fear, and sadness are all common and typical human emotions. Researchers have identified a wide range of problems that arise for people who aren't able to talk about emotions constructively, including social isolation, unsatisfying relationships, feelings of anxiety and depression, misdirected aggression. Furthermore, the way parents talk to their children about emotions has a powerful effect on the children's development. Studies identified two distinct parenting styles: emotion coaching and emotion dismissing. The coaching approach gives children skills for communicating about their feelings later in life that led to much more satisfying relationships. Children who grew up in families where parents dismiss emotions are at a higher risk for behavioral problems than those who are raised in families that practice emotional coaching. There are a variety of influence on emotional expressions: personality, culture, gender, social conventions, social media, and emotional contagion. In face-to-face communication, one study showed that fathers mask their emotions more than mothers do, which leads their children to have more difficulty reading their father's emotional expressions. In online communication, similar differences between male and female emotional expressiveness apply. For example, women are more likely than men to use emoticons to express their feelings. Also, women express more affection on Facebook than men. Emotion labor is used to describe situations in which managing and even suppressing emotions is both appropriate and necessary. Studies show that emotion labor is an important component of many, if not most, occupations. Emotional contagion is the process by which emotions are transferred from one person to another. We tend to catch feelings from one as though they were some kind of social virus. There is evidence that students catch the mood of their teachers. Customers are affected by the emotions of employees who serve them, and husband and wives directly influence each other's emotions. In fact, studies show that our happiness or unhappiness can be affected by neighbors, friends of friends, or even total strangers. There are a variety of guidelines for expressing your emotions. First is to recognize your feelings. So beyond being aware of one's feelings, research shows that it's valuable to be able to identify one's emotions. Researchers have found that college students who can pinpoint the negative emotions they experience also have the best strategies for managing those emotions. This explains why the ability to distinguish and label emotions is a vital component to emotional intelligence, both within and across cultures. Recognizing the difference between feeling, talking, and acting. Compelling evidence suggests that people who act out angry feelings, whether by lashing out or even by hitting an inanimate punching bag, actually feel worse than those who experience anger without lashing out. Pretending that nothing is bothering you or lashing out at the other person is unlikely to diminish your resentful feelings, which can go on to contaminate the relationship. There are several ways to express a feeling verbally. One is by using single words. I'm angry, excited, depressed, curious. By describing what's happening to you. My stomach is tied in knots. I'm on top of the world. By describing what you'd like to do. I want to run away. I like to give you a hug. For example, an indirect way to say that I'm lonesome might be, I guess there's not much going on this weekend, so if you don't have any plans, maybe you could text me and we can hang out. Such a message is so indirect that your real feeling may not even be recognized. For this reason, people who send coded messages stand less of a chance of having those feelings understood and their needs met. Share multiple feelings. The feeling you express often isn't the only one you're experiencing. For example, you might often express your anger, but overlook confusion, disappointment, frustration, sadness, or embarrassment that precedes it. Consider when and where you express your feelings. Time and place will oftentimes dictate what is appropriate and when is not an appropriate time to express your feelings. Most importantly, we have to accept responsibility for your feelings. It's important to make sure that language reflects the fact that you are responsible for your feelings. So instead of saying you are making me angry, one would say I'm getting angry. Instead of saying you hurt my feelings, say I feel hurt when you do that. Another challenging component to expressing our emotions is which channel we're using to communicate our thoughts. So today, we have more channel choices than many decades ago, and the decision about when to use mediated channels such as email, direct message, cell phone, social media sites, blogging, call for a level of analysis that wasn't required in the past. For instance, is it appropriate to signal your desire to end a relationship with a voicemail? When is it acceptable to use all capital letters in a blog post? Most people intuitively recognize that the selection of channel depends in part on the kind of messages they're sending. In one survey, students identified which channel they would find best for delivering a variety of messages. Most respondents said they would have little trouble expressing positive messages in person, but preferred mediated channels for negative messages. Facilitative emotions contribute to the effective functioning, and debilitative emotions detract from effective functioning. Now, one difference between the two types is their intensity. For instance, a certain amount of anger or irritation can be constructive because it often provides a stimulus that leads you to improve the unsatisfying conditions. Rage, on the other hand, usually makes matters worse. The second characteristic that distinguishes debilitative feelings from facilitative ones is their extended duration. So feeling depressed for a while after the breakup of a relationship or loss of a job is natural, but spending the rest of your life grieving over your loss would accomplish nothing. In the same way, staying angry at someone for a wrong inflicted long ago can be just as punishing to you as the wrongdoer. Social scientists call this rumination, and that is dwelling persistently on negative thoughts that in turn intensify negative feelings. And a substantial body of research confirms that rumination increases feelings of sadness, anxiety, jealousy, and depression, and makes them last even longer. Many debilitative emotions come from accepting a number of irrational thoughts, and we'll call them fallacies. We usually aren't aware of these thoughts, which makes them especially powerful. The fallacy of perfection. People who accept this fallacy believe that a worthwhile communicator should be able to handle every situation with complete confidence and skill. Now, nobody's perfect, but given the desire to be valued and appreciated, it's tempting to try to appear flawless. The fallacy of approval is based on the idea that it's not just desirable but vital to get the approval of virtually every person. The fallacy of shoulds is the inability to distinguish between what is and what should be. The message in each case is that you would prefer people to behave differently. Wishing that things were better is legitimate, and trying to change things may be a good idea, but it's unreasonable to insist that the world operate just as you want it, or to feel cheated when things aren't ideal. The fallacy of overgeneralization comprises two types. The first type of overgeneralization occurs when we base a belief on a limited amount of evidence. For instance, how many times have you found yourself saying one of these? Some friend I am, I forgot my best friend's birthday. A second type of overgeneralization occurs when we exaggerate shortcomings. You never listen to me. You're always late. The fallacy of causation is based on the irrational belief that emotions are caused by other people rather than by our own self-talk. It's essential to realize, however, that it's an overstatement to say that you are the one who causes others' feelings. It's more accurate to say that they respond to your behavior with feelings of their own. The fallacy of helplessness suggests that the satisfaction in life is determined by forces beyond your control. I can't tell my boss that. She's putting too demands on me. If I do, I might lose my job. And the fallacy of catastrophic expectations operates on the assumption that if something bad can possibly happen, it will. If I invite them to the party, they probably won't want to come. If I apply for that job I want, I probably won't be hired. A strategy to maximize facilitative emotions is to reappraise challenging situations. Reappraising your irrational beliefs is the key to success in the rational emotive approach.